Hi, I'm Dan. Welcome to Den and Denim, the channel where I usually talk about very valuable genes. But by far the most valuable items in my home are the artwork of Sean Michael Gallagher. His ceramics are the unique product of education, suffering, and talent. If you own any of them, amazing. He's got an impressive art resume, a BFA from RISD, MFA from University of Chicago, and he has his work in at least 4 different galleries around the country, USA. But he is also one of the best friends of my life. Let me tell you about him. Sean Michael Gallagher, borrowed time, dysfunctional wear, 2%, clays. These are some of the names and handles he operated under. Each one was a specific personality and viewpoint to the art world. His medium centers around ceramics, clay at its rawest and roughest, straight from the earth. But also some porcelain and gold because it's fancy and difficult. Sean's whole presence in the art world is about taking on what is difficult and fighting the challenge. The artwork is the proof of that fight. He was a fighting man. In fact, he had a lot of professions. He was a mixed martial artist who combined Muay Thai boxing with capoeira. Sean grew up in what he would often describe as a broken home in Florida, close to Miami. He had 2 sisters whom he loved. The whole family were Dallas Cowboy fans. Football was one of the few decent memories of his parents. His daddy issues were the fuel for a lot of his work, a lot of his fights. He wanted to be a writer in his 20s and wrote some short stories. This put him on the track to college. Unfortunately, life isn't as easy as making decisions and getting results. There's a lot of needs and obstacles along the way. One of his jobs was as a gigolo. The operation went as such. He had a friend who sold mattresses, and Sean would deliver them to the customers. And on request, be expected to, well, if you've seen the movie Loverboy, then extra anchovies. He's actually a guy with a lot of feelings. By his early 30s, he went back to college to study art. I met him at Santa Monica College then. He was doing ceramics. The first one I remember seeing was a foot-tall, neon pink phallus with hot gun, glue gun for cum, and the title, "I'm Not Just a Dick." I thought it was bitchin'. In an extracurricular work, he put an orb in the middle of 2 dancing sculptures in the center of the art quad, where there were already an existing sculpture of 2 dancers moving around, and then he put this one of his balls or orbs that he was working on, and it just made the whole thing come together, and people for the next 6 months thought that's what it was and it belonged there. And I think some other artists let it slip and it accidentally told the wrong person and they got it removed. And see, Sean was notorious for having great ideas but not going through the proper channels. I loved it. I still do. He made the environment look beautiful. He was the one cleaning up the studio after classes so that he could have a place to work. He and I really bonded at the studio. I was there trying to observe the artist's process, and he was constantly at work. We had a lot of common, but also a lot of differences, and somehow we got along wonderfully from the very beginning. Well, the first 5 minutes of meeting, I actually hated him, like some kind of smell or tick in my head went off, and I was like, no, why? That's stupid. You're here to meet new minds and have unfamiliar experiences. So we talked, and the bond was pretty instantaneous. At the time, I lived half a block from the beach, and he lived in a boat on the docks. And I was like, wow, to live further west than the beach, inconceivable. And we had fun collaboration projects and writing about him. And 20-something years ago, and again today. It's amazing. I love you, Sean. These orbs, or balls, or whatever we called them, because they became part of his iconography. I wrote a lot of innuendos into the year catalog. And for the year-end show was black orbs projecting from pink panels with a fuzzy pink ladder. All 9 panels sold out opening night. People loved his work aesthetically and contextually, commoners and professors. He was trying to be a male feminist. He blended the ideas of emo with masculine aggression and a twist against the feminist theory that we were being pumped with in class. To get analytical for a minute, feminist theory is really just an approach to asking in art, what is the role of gender? And he was questioning, what did it mean to be a male artist? What did it mean to be an artist who was also a sex worker? But also the quest to just make something aesthetically pleasing. And part of me is so drawn to his work because I know how much effort he puts into it, and process art is one of my favorite themes. The work of painter Mark Bradford really shows how layering and removing layers is a long process towards the final artwork. Sean was doing ceramics, and he had to finish a clay piece within a timeline and see if it lasts. A good percentage of the work falls apart in the kiln. 2 years after meeting, Sean moved across the country, and it would be 12 years until we saw each other again in person. But we would still text and chat and email quite often. He needed to do something with his name. There were already too many artists named Sean Gallagher. He said to me that he wants to add his middle name, Sean Michael. And I said, like the porn star? And he said yes, but also to reflect the Irishness that he was proud of. Sean was fond of the Irish Gaelic language and culture, and this was part of the dream he eventually wanted to work into his art. Now, the year is currently 2005, 2006. We're at RISD. He is getting his BFA. He was obsessed with in situ art that needs to be situated in a place. You can't move it from that particular place unless you move the whole place. He wanted to change the scenery around him with just a simple piece. He did some great work. He also had some troubles. He was a guy who looked like the bad guy and got blamed for a lot of things. They'd provoke him and he would react. He was held for a month in jail on breaking and entering charges to his own studio. It would be 8 years until he was exonerated. He still got to continue in school, and then for his MFA, he went to Chicago. And 2007, he did a piece called Porcelain Tiles. Now, this is when he got his master's. Porcelain was attractive to Sean because it was a pure form of clay, but more so because it was one of the most difficult types of clay material to master. And he made these porcelain links that laid together, these tiles that formed interconnecting parts of time, our lives, desires, and form into a work of delicate beauty. I had a picture of this as my desktop for years. And after school, he was ready to make a living as an artist. He had loans to pay off, and the roll of the dice took him to Hawaii. He loved Honolulu. He was productive and getting exhibits in galleries. He integrated glass into his work. He was selling glass bowls for over $1,000 each. It was the high life he deserved. I think his crowning achievement in Hawaii is finding his dog Woody. What a pair. Inseparable best friends. When they were staying with me and Sean would go to the market, Woody would just squat at the front door, moping till Sean came back. I would try to cheer him up with some treats, but to no avail. Woody is kind of a co-artist in these works. He would be playing with a piece of clay right alongside his human. No. While in Hawaii, he revisited some of his feminist theories. He made the shirts like the one here. It says object, as in the art object, but also being objectified. The person wearing this, or just the t-shirts, whatever you think is the object in art. It's a big part of theory. And he made a bumper stickers. She is greater than I. And this is a play on a Hawaiian lifestyle guru who had these but said, he is greater than I. And he being the Hawaiian forest god, but also he being the men in her family. Sean liked to play with this kind of stuff. And of course, his iconic colors of pink and black. Now, a couple years goes by to read from Sean's 2013 artist statement. Early in 2013, I decided to take a break from my usual studio practice of working with porcelain in a very time-consuming and painfully frustrating, fragile way. I did not expect to embark on a series of interventions that were a 180-degree transition from my usual practice. One day hiking, I thought to myself, clay is the most abundant traditional craft material on the planet, and the most abundant type of clay is sedimentary, formed by the erosion of rocks. And instantly, I began exploring the idea of bypassing the conventional idea of consumer-purchased materials and even the process of erosion. Thus began the next two series. 2013's Alchemy series, 2014's Philosopher's Stone. In each, he was burning the rocks and fusing his material with the natural. He wanted to grab the clay straight from the earth, and he did. He loved the contrast of working with delicate porcelain and then the heaviest boulders he could swing. A lot of the work he was doing at this time, he was putting back into the same place of the jungle where he found the clay and rocks. He was giving his best work as a sacrifice to the gods that granted him the possibility to create. Thus his name, Borrowed Time. But there's something else I should tell you about Sean if you haven't picked it up the theme by now. There are dark shadows lurking from the corners. He had battles with addiction, and while he tried hard to be the lovable teddy bear heart I always saw on him, that's not the reality of this world. By the end of 2014, he was living in a van down by the river. Started doing ride shares, and in fact, the two of us entered the gig economy at this point and shared our stories of how abusive a job it was. So he returned to LA, and it was great to see him. I could see he needed help. He put a lot of work into getting sober. He fell in love, and things were going to be good for a second. He had his LA phase. In LA, he started working with a new type of glaze that was made out of clay. He called it Clays. But the name was already taken by a porn studio. It was hilarious. These pieces are fun and vibrant. They crack and peel away. You are left with this functional yet unwashable vessel. They say to the viewer, I'm revealing myself to you and decaying, but don't throw me out yet. He gained the notice of famed art collector Gay Rabisi. She became his personal patron, and this allowed him to make a lot more art and even add gold to some of his pieces. One of the precious things was his reunion with the lost love of his life, actress Amy O'Neill. The two were in love decades prior, but he was a bad boy and she was the perfect girl, so her family paid him off, and while he didn't want the money, he knew this was the end. And they never got back together, but they remained great friends. It was some solace. Remember, this is Sean Michael Gallagher. We gotta drop a big old drama bomb on the situation. His girlfriend and his AA group turned him into some kind of monster. They accused him of terrible crimes, and he had been run out of his social group. Without a safety net, he went back to living in a van down by the freeway. And we were both living in cars at this time, working gig jobs, food delivery, ride shares, task rabbits, and finding each situation in life harder. He let me stay in his van for a week while he was away. We shared what we could. I got out, had my own adventures. He moved to Portland. I don't think he liked it a lot there, but he really tried to be a good soul. He tried to continue making art. He took out Buddha head sculptures, the mass-produced kind, and melted clay on them. They were selling like gluten-free hotcakes at a hipster diner. And Portland was one of the more mild places for him, but Portland 2017 was not the same as it was a decade earlier. And he decided to take the Donald Judd approach and go to Texas. And it was a good step. He was finding a community. He liked the culture. He was happy. One day, about 5 years ago, I got this huge package delivered to me in Poland. It was all of these pieces, new pieces he was working on, pieces that really reflect some of the years since I had seen him and what he had been working on. He'd given my mom some pieces a few times as a gift. This is very meaningful to me, and I will treasure them always. This stage of his work is a combination of all his past ages. He was making vessels that could be used, but were also simply aesthetic. You can find him in Texas at Tumbleweed Gallery. Sean encouraged me in a lot of ways. When we first met, I was a writer, historian, and critic amongst a group of visual artists who had crafts. And they really didn't understand that words were also a craft. So I wanted to craft my writing, and doing comedy was part of that journey. Sean was the one who got me turned on to Lenny Bruce. Sean encouraged me to do this channel, and he was one of my first subscribers. We talked about how we were so desirous to make some business plan that could provide ourselves with decent jobs, but also raise money for animal charities. I texted him to tell him that my son was born, and he was so happy for me. And a week later, while my infant son was in the hospital ill, I saw on his Instagram post that he had died. A heart attack. He was at the studio at night, Woody by his side. If an ambulance had just gotten there sooner. His last wish was to donate all proceeds of his work to a local animal charity. Every piece sold out within a day. I wanted to do this episode for 2 years, but it has been emotional. Every time, putting focus into other videos was something I had to do because I can't talk with my friend that I've shared my best and worst experiences for the last 20 years with. He deserved a lot better than he got. I hope that some people who have his work understand who he was. He was my friend. But he's also the kind of sweet-hearted artist who wanted to make the world a better place. Unfortunately, he looked like a demon spawned with tattoos, piercings, and a mean face, but that's what people put that onto him, and their loss. I'm thankful for his friendship. I'm thankful I gave it a chance. I think we really missed out on his later stage in his art when he would have become that Gaelic sage. He lives in my heart and my family's. We keep his work and his picture on display. We say Kaddish for him every year. His art career has several points of interest that resurfaced throughout other periods of his work. He was constantly learning new ways to view clay and tying it all the loose ends of his path to make meaningful works of beauty. I hope you enjoyed the story of Sean Michael Gallagher. Leave a comment if you got any of his pieces or have seen any of his work. I'm Dan. Love your art.